Mr. Edwards, you've accepted a number of endorsements over the last couple of weeks, many of them from groups that appear to be at odds with each other. How will you be able to be all things to all these different people, and what kinds of promises are you making to make some of your former enemies your friends now?
I can't agree with you that many of them appear to be at odds with each other. Certainly the environmentalists and the business community have a joint interest in keeping the environment clean and yet keeping the economy going. Certainly the educators that are supporting me are interested in a good educational system, and that's good for good business. Certainly the law enforcement people are concerned about crime in our streets and the conditions of our cities and rural areas. I'm very flattered that the former governor, Pt.3, who has never been a political ally of mine, Governor Roma, who certainly is no political ally of mine, hundreds of people and local officials and groups that have never supported me before now recognize that given the choice which they have, I have the best opportunity to provide some leadership. What's important about these endorsements, Barry, is that it is not the endorsements, it is the fact that the groundswell of support which leads up to the endorsements means the endorsements are merely a reflection of what these people see the public wants. And that makes me feel very good, because each person who endorses only has one vote. I don't want any person in this state to vote for me because somebody has endorsed me. But I think it's important that those who are trying to make up their minds know that these concerned groups and people, environmentalists, business people, law enforcement, educators, who have worked with me and know my capabilities, have decided that given the choices they now face, Edwin Edwards is the best choice. And I appreciate that.
And now a response from Mr. Duke.
Well, the answer is, what is he giving for those endorsements? He's giving everything. He's promising everybody everything. That's what he's always done. Edwin Edwards is a great guy to organize a party. He's a great guy to spend money. I'm sure he's sold every board, every commission, every office in this state 3 or 4 times already. I'm tired of that. I think the voters are tired of that. Yeah, there are a lot of people. You know, he's got some environmental support, doesn't have all of them. He's got some business support. He's been the biggest enemy of the environment. He's responsible for the environment we have right now in the state of Louisiana over the last 20 years. And business, he's done everything he could do against business over the last 20 years. He just told us how he wants to raise federal income tax on all of us. How will that affect the small business person? We want to have a constitutional convention. Where are those taxes going to fall? They're going to fall on the people who work and produce. We need to change. Endorsements aren't the way. I think people are tired of all the endorsements. I think that's why people want term limitation. They're tired of the politicians. They want somebody who's going to stand up for them honestly and openly, and I'm going to do it. I'm not asking for any endorsements. The only endorsement that I want is the endorsement of the people that really count, the voters, the people of this state who work hard, who pay taxes, who want safe streets and good schools and a clean environment. And that's who I'll stand up for in this election and as your governor.
A question now, Mr. Duke, for you from John Dennison.
Mr. Duke, there were letters published this morning from professional groups which say they will not bring their conventions to Louisiana if you are elected governor. What would you say to these people to make them change their minds and come here, or should we just write off their business?
Well, we shouldn't write off anybody's business. And I'll tell them that I'll be a great governor for the state of Louisiana. But all the dire predictions for other states when they elected men who spoke out, all didn't come true. The same thing was said about George Wallace, and Alabama did great. The same thing was said about Lester Maddox in Georgia. And unfortunately, Georgia passed us up over the last few years. I will work to bring that business here. And I tell you, the conventions that cancel, there'll be a lot more conventions who will be replaced. The same thing happened in Arizona. There were some conventions that canceled out there, but they were replaced, and they now have a full convention schedule. The same thing is true in Miami after the Nelson Mandela situation. I'm not going to run this state by what a few special interests outside this state want. If we really want to run this state that way, Mr. Dennison, we might as well not have an election and just let these special interest groups, these liberals in the special interest groups around the country, determine who our governor is. Let's not have an election if that's how we want to run this state. We've got to choose who the best person will be for this government, for the state of Louisiana. We can't let outsiders make that choice. And any convention that's lost, I guarantee you there are many conservatives out there in business who believe in what I believe, who want equal rights for every citizen, who want welfare reform, who don't want higher taxes. They'll come here,
and your time
they'll
has
operate.
expired, Mr. Duke. Thank you. Mr. Edwards, your response.
At some point, I'd like for him to name a person to whom I've sold a job or a position. That's just not right. And I say that publicly again. Nobody has any kind of commitment from me for anything. And no one can contest that, not even my opponent. But I think the significant thing is not whether it's fair or not. We just can't draw a line around Louisiana and say, well, we're going to be different. And I think it's very interesting that my opponent now identifies himself with the politics of the past in naming Lester Maddox and George Wallace. We need to move ahead. This state has serious economic problems, man. If we're to elect a governor who right away sends signals that we don't want the rest of the nation to do business with us or to come see us or to come to our conventions or to play sporting events here, then we're setting the stage. You talk about a welfare system. We're going to have thousands of more people who are unemployed, and we will have to find some way to support them and take care of them. Dr. Timothy Ryan of UNO just issued a report showing that the wrong signal at this time is going to cost this state 45,000 jobs and $1.8 billion in economic recovery if we do not get in step with the rest of the nation. We are not an island unto ourselves. It's very important that we try to bring this state as we get into the next century at least fully into the parade of the 50 states of the nation as a part of this great union. We cannot draw a line around ourselves, segregate ourselves, and say we will go it on our own. It simply won't work.
Your time has expired. Mr. Edwards, Blue Rolfes has a question for you.
Mr. Edwards, it's said that Governor Romer's voters will decide which of you will be elected. Which of Governor Romer's programs do you like best, and which do you like least?
I like his Children First program the best because it brought some additional pay, badly needed pay to teachers, and set a tone in Louisiana for a commitment to education. I would like to amplify on it, though, and emphasize kindergarten and Head Start programs for poverty-level children to give them a better chance in the first grade. The thing that I liked the least about what he did was his cuts in the VOTEC system. I'm very committed to providing training for those who wish to be carpenters, electricians, beauticians, nurses. There are 4,500 people in Louisiana wanting to become nurses now who cannot get into a class, some 1,600 potential welders. They could all get good jobs upon completion. And I want to go back into the VOTEC system. I built the system in the 70s, and I want to enrich it, provide some better pay for the VOTEC teachers, and encourage the 70% of our young people who do not have the time or the inclination to go to college to go and get into the system and learn a trade or a paraprofessional a way to make a living, because we need that kind of craftsman in our society.
All right, a response now from Mr. Duke.
I like the idea of political reform, first and foremost. I think we need political reform in the state. Limited terms, let's get fresh blood in the legislature, fresh blood in legislative activities. And I'm the freshest, I guess, of that blood in politics in Louisiana. I also believe very strongly that we've got to put education first. I voted for the teacher pay raises. Again, I must reiterate that after 12 years of Edwin Edwards as governor, teacher salaries in this state, in this last year, were the lowest of any state of the United States of America. That's not putting children first. I believe as well that we've got to have a good, strong vocational educational program and a strong university system. We've got to reduce the duplication, reduce the bureaucracy that we have in those institutions. We also have to enforce busing, which is so damaged education. And new Supreme Court guidelines tell us that we can eliminate forced busing if we go into federal court. We have a more conservative Supreme Court now. Let's do that. Forced busing has caused racial tension. It's lowered educational quality. It's led to white flight and lowered tax bases in our major cities. We've got to change those things. Education first. I will be an education first governor, and in that I agree with Buddy Romer.
All right, a question now from Signora Thomas to Mr. Duke.
Mr. Duke, both of you have elements among your supporters who have been emotionally stirred by some of the racial overtones in this campaign. No matter who wins this election, what will you do to try to heal the divisions that have been caused because of this campaign?
Okay. What I will do is I'll state and speak the people of Louisiana and say the time has come for everyone in this state to work together. And that means that we solve the problems we have together. We all have problems, black and white. Crime afflicts the black community as much as it does the white community. Drugs afflict that community. Educational problems, Wasted tax money afflicts them. Government corruption afflicts them. All of us have been treated like pawns in forced busing in these social engineering programs. We need to work together. We need to stand together. I've not tried, I know I've been opposed to affirmative action, but I've not waged a racially oriented campaign. I've never made a specific appeal and said, white people, vote for me because of who I am. Edwin Edwards has gone to the black community and said specifically, blacks should vote for me because of who I am and what I stand for. I didn't organize a voter registration drive in white areas. He organized and helped organize a voter registration drive in particular racial areas because of the partisan vote that's produced. That's divisive. I'm tired of the divisiveness. I believe in equal rights for all. That's what I'm working for. I think affirmative action is a program of racial discrimination that needs to be ended. We've got to start working for excellence and quality. And I hope that James Meredith, who was a civil rights leader, is also an example to the people of this state. Because James Meredith believes that the social welfare system we now have is producing tension, is producing crime, is producing illegitimacy. It's harming everyone, black and white. And I'll work to change the conditions so we can live in peace and harmony again together.
Thank you. Your response, Mr. Edwards.
Boy, you're going to lose your newfound religion if you don't quit lying. You didn't vote for every teacher pay raise. There was only one vote for teacher pay raise. It was in the Children's First Act in 1988 before you got to the legislature, and after you got there you voted against every appropriations bill, and if you had succeeded in killing the bill, the teachers would not have gotten a raise, highways would not have gotten any money, nobody would have gotten anything. So don't suggest that you've supported the teachers. You simply haven't. That's your record. Let me say, you're here trying to say that you're going to try to bring us together after you elected, and you end your statement by accusing me of organizing voter registration drives in racially designated areas, when that simply is not so. I had nothing to do with that. Those people were motivated to register on their own, and I admire them for it. But the fact of the matter is, as many whites as blacks voted. I'm not accusing you of organizing the whites or the blacks. And for you to suggest that I've been to black people saying they ought to vote for me because of who I am, what should I say to them? They should vote for me because of who you are? I think they'd probably vote for anybody because of who you are. My point is, they should vote for me because of my record of concern for education, for jobs, for caring for people, for being compassionate. I have spent my whole life trying to bring people together. I don't build barricades between people. I build bridges.
All right, a question now for Mr. Edwards from John Dennison.
Mr. Edwards, thousands of Louisiana consumers have lost money from the demise of insurance companies. Many more are paying premiums far above the national average. There is talk again that if the state went to a system of no-fault auto insurance, a system which eliminates blame and cuts down on all the legal challenges, that affordable insurance would then be available for most Louisiana drivers. Would you please tell us where you stand on no-fault driver insurance?
I proposed no-fault driver insurance in the middle 70s. We took a good hard look at it, had some legislative hearings, and to be very honest with you, I changed my opinion. I determined that it really was not a good idea. And since that time, several states that had no-fault insurance have canceled the program because it simply does not work. The question about the insurance thing is a very serious one. It's a long-range problem, not only in Louisiana, but in America. And I hope that the new insurance commissioner will be interested in working with me and the legislature to try to develop some plans to shore up the industry and to make insurance available. One thing that did happen that's good is the LIGA fund, which sets aside a fund based upon taxes on insurance premiums to pay for claims when insurance companies go broke. I must say to you with a great deal of regret that the possibility of additional companies facing financial problems in Louisiana and in this nation continues to loom on the horizon, and it's certainly a serious problem that we're going to have to deal with.
Mr. Duke.